But governance is the control, right? It's the authority. It's the fairness. Governance is the thing that you need in order to make sure that your organization does not spiral out of control. Um, I've worked with a lot of organizations, and the first thing they want to do is fail the process, say the process failed. Oh, the process failed because of this, or this person, I didn't know the process was this. I was creating this other process over here. And so governance helps to make sure that that type of thing does not happen. It helps to make sure that people are following the right process, that they are accountable, that they are made aware. Is that it makes sure that the process owners educate their folks, provide them with the latest information, etc. So sometimes when we think about a organization that's gone rogue, or you have, cliques of people just kind of doing their own thing, oftentimes I challenge the governance, right? So what has been established that holds people accountable, that makes sure that everyone's reading from the same sheet of music. And sometimes it is actually the governance that does that. I'll just read this quote here. IT governance is the responsibility of the board of directors and executive management. So this governance, or the idea of governance and establishing governments, comes from the highest level of management within an organization. It's not driven by the quality manager or anyone else. It has to come from the people who run the organization, and is their responsibility to establish governance. It is the integral part of enterprise governance and consistent of the leadership, organizational structures, and processes that ensure organizations' IT sustains as well as extend the organization's strategies and objectives. So once again, if we think about the ITIL process life cycle, governance happens within strategy, right? That nucleus, that core, and it's established there. And that governance helps to support everything else that happens within the organization. Pretty straightforward. Any questions about this?
Nope, and noted.
So this is a PDCA, or Deming cycle. We can come back to this when we talk about continual service improvement. Are you familiar with that Deming cycle?
Never seen that one before.
Okay, excellent. So that'll be a good talking point for us. Okay, definition of a process, more definitions. A process is just simply a set of coordinated activities. And within those coordinated activities, you strive to do the following: combine and implement strategic assets. Remember, strategic assets are resources and capabilities. So if we think about it, just going all the way back to definitions, combine and implement your process, your people, your capital, your knowledge. It's a set of coordinated activities that's combining and implementing all of those things together, right? It's also going to produce an outcome. So, which is very important. If we're continually doing stuff and we have no idea what the outcome is, then we're not following a process. A process has a very distinct outcome. Typically, it starts with an objective to say, hey, here's what we're trying to do, or here's what we're going to accomplish by doing this. But it produces some type of outcome. So if we're doing stuff and it does not produce an outcome, we're not following a process. Also, this set of coordinated activities directly or indirectly creates value. So it directly or indirectly creates value, which is also established by the customer. And what is value? We talked about capacity, security, continuity. Let's go back.
Utility plus warranty.
Yep, utility plus warranty is value. So that is what the process or set of coordinated activities help to provide. It can be used by an external customer or stakeholder. So it's not just internal process. In the case when you were talking to me briefly during our introduction about your interaction with said vendor, and the experience that you had. So just because the customer was external to the company doesn't mean that you all couldn't have established a process for everyone to follow. And I think that's a very common misconception of an interaction between a vendor and an organization. It's that we have to kind of go along with the flow. And really, we don't. We can say, hey, vendor A, our process is this, and you provide us, this artifact or this product or this test result on this frequency. And that's a part of our standard work. This is how we do business, right? And so the customer probably say, we don't really want to do that, but we want to do business with you. Yes, we'll go ahead and follow your process. A process should also be measurable. It should be result oriented, and it should respond to specific events. So these are all the ITIL's elements of a process. Very, very different from what people typically think a process is, which is documenting words on a page and saying, hey, we have a defined process. Very, very different. So it's important to know, I'm not sure if you want to screenshot this one, but it's important to know what a process is or how it's defined by ITIL.
Yes, definitely took this one. I think that there's a lot of, I think this would be good for our company to go back and say, like, these are the processes that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see this being a good jumping off point, because we've been going back and forth about setting up some SOPs for different aspects of the business and breaking down what each process within that procedure is, and kind of giving it a little definition of, or answering these questions.
Right.
What does each aspect of this do?
Right. What do we hope to achieve by following this, right? If everyone follows this, what is our expectation at the end of this?
Ooh, could you put that note on there? What do we hope to achieve by doing this?
Let me see where. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
Excellent. No problem. Okay. Process model. So this is ITIL's process model of how process should work and how it influences the organization. So at the top, you have process control. You have process owners, process documentation, right? So that's the process actually on paper. Your process objectives, and I stated earlier that most of the process should start with some type of objective, what we are striving to do, what we are hoping to achieve, and then process feedback, which is more of it comes from their process output. So, but it feeds back into your overall process control. But process starts with your process policy. And your process policy is most of the time driven by a governance, some type of governance statement to say, hey, we are going to make sure that we're following risk management throughout for every project that we have, and we hope to achieve X, Y, Z. So the policy is your governance for following the actual process. So these are your process controls. The process itself is made up of, it started by some type of trigger, right? Typically, it's we missed an SLA, so now we want to implement a process. Or we have this new contract with this vendor and we've never done this before, so we need to implement a process. Or the government is saying that we have to abide by this new NIST standard. So, we have to implement a new process. So it's typically triggered by some type of outside influence, but the process itself is made up of process activities, procedures, work instructions. There are roles that are identified, and then process improvements. And then the process enablers are just the things that enable you to perform your process, right? To execute it. Those could be resources or capabilities, right? Your strategic assets, once again. These could be organizational tools that could help you, such as Jira. Like Jira is a great task tracking tool. It could be SharePoint. It could be some type of voting button on Microsoft Outlook. So those are just your process enablers. And then the process outputs would include all of your reviews and reports. And those are the things that ultimately become your outcome, right? So what do we do? What did we achieve by performing this process? Typically, those outputs go back. This is a part of continual service improvement. They feed back into your process control. And so at the end of this whole activity, we've implemented a process. Everyone has followed the process. We've achieved X outcome. Was it our expected outcome? If yes, great, this process works well. If not, we go back to the beginning and we refine our process. Well, what didn't work about the process? Oh, it was written on paper and only 90% of the team had access to the written process. Or the process works well for people that are located on site, but people that are, halfway around the country or halfway around the world, they don't have access to it, or they're on a different time zone. So you take that feedback and you put it back to your process, quote unquote control, and you refine your process, and you go through the whole activity until the process becomes something that's usable and repeatable. Make sense?
All good.